Okay, I see we have everyone's here. All the commissioners that were planning to come are here, and I think all the attendees that I was expecting are here as well. So we can go ahead and get started whenever you guys want. The first order of business has to be assigning a acting chair because Melissa Cody's not here.
So how do we do that?
Someone can, whoever's willing to do it, and then someone else can motion to make them the acting chair, and then we can go from there.
I'll volunteer if no one else wants to.
Awesome. So someone can just make a motion to
have motion to elect Jay as the acting chair for tonight's meeting.
Second.
Do we have to do a roll call vote thing?
I don't even know if you're, I mean, you can if you want to, or I'll say it, aye, whatever you prefer.
No, we don't have to.
Okay.
All right, it's 6:02. I'll call to order the October 25th Easthampton Conservation Commission meeting. Are there any public concerns or non-agenda items?
I have not received any.
Okay. Public hearings continue from September 27th. Notice of intent filed by Lathrop Community.
Yep, so that they've requested for that to be continued again. I don't have any updates this time.
All right, so can I get a motion to continue that to November 8th at 6 p.m.?
Motion to continue to November 8th at 6 p.m.
Okay.
All right, roll call vote. Deborah?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
And I'll say aye also. So the motion passes. All right, public hearing notice of intent filed by Robert Levesque Associates on behalf of One Industrial Lofts LLC for lots 1 and 2 on 1 Ferry Street.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing, Jay?
Good, it's been a while.
Yeah. I can start if you guys are ready.
Sure.
Good evening. For the record, Rob Levesque from our Levesque Associates. Here with us this evening on Zoom is Michael Michon. We filed a notice of intent for some work in the buffer zone to bank resource area. I believe you guys are fairly familiar with this. This is actually an application that included a signature by the town because this is, I'm sorry, the city, because this is on city property. We did receive a file number form and some questions and comments related to the work itself. As a follow-up to those file number comments, I did have a conversation with Cassie today, as well as Ryan in my office, Ryan Nelson in my office, has also forwarded some information from a MIPA filing that pertain to some of the questions in the file number form. So essentially there was a question from DEP, current DEP staff, as it relates to the canal, where the canal begins and ends. I believe you folks probably remember from the previous filing that there was some question as to whether or not the canal ended in the concrete bottom portion where, you know, and also where the culvert was for the train bridge. And David Fowlis and some work by Catherine Skiba through the MIPA, through DEP's response to MIPA. They looked very closely in the past at the canal, and the canal was actually rerouted and man-made from here, from essentially the location where that brick culvert is, all the way to the Manhan. And David and I and others were able to go through and kind of recreate the meandering river that used to be there. And then obviously now there's a straight shot for the Manhan. So that was established through that. I believe we've provided that information to Cassie. I forget which paragraph specifically it was in that filing, but arguably kind of clarified that. So the work we're proposing is to clean up the slope that exists. I will share a plan if it's okay here, if I can figure out how to do it in a little bit. It looks like I'm disabled. Cassie.
All right, I just enabled it, sorry.
Oh, awesome, thank you. So with any luck, you'll be looking at our plan. And you'll, can everyone see my cursor? Beautiful, okay.
Yes.
So I'll orient everybody. So this is the back of, and Mike will help me with the building number again. Is this 7, Mike, or 5? I can't remember. well, whatever building this. So this is,
sorry, Rob, building 7, I was muted.
awesome, thank you. Here, the back of building 7, if you guys are familiar, there's an overhang in the back of building 7 that kind of runs like the traffic or the access, will so to speak, comes under that overhang. That overhang is this dashed line right here. The red line that you see outlined is the 100-year floodplain. And that's, I believe, at an elevation of 122. We're proposing work on the adjacent slope. So essentially there's a little bit of work in the BLSF, we'll call it. And then also the work on the slope would be in the 100-foot buffer zone to the bank of the canal. And, you know, a little clarification on that MIPA letter, if you guys do have a copy of that, we'll certainly clarify for you. My daughter's supposed to be watching our new puppy, but I'm not sure. I apologize. So that I guess she's not. So that said, the slope is being slightly regraded and cleaned up, and then there's proposed plantings along that slope. And beyond that, I think it's pretty straightforward. There's some areas that will be seeded, erosion control blankets, etc., will be planned along that slope as it's regraded. And then we have some plantings that we're proposing. We have a plant list here of native plant material, and then also some seed to be applied to the slopes themselves. So essentially just an effort to clean this area up and replant it. I believe, I can't speak for the city, but I know that they did sign on as the applicant. So I'm hoping that they are in fact in favor of this. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. I know Mike has intimate knowledge of this proposed project here, and maybe he could add anything that he sees fit. That's about it.
Are you adding material to the 100-year floodplain?
Good question. So I talked to Ryan Nelson in our office, and I had him clarify in an email today that Cassie should have a copy of. There's a document called Flood Calcs. Let me just pull that up here. Can you see this okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. So he just very carefully went through at each incremental elevation, the cuts and fills. So we had a net surplus of comp storage of about 5,057 cubic feet, not cubic yards, but cubic feet. So divide that by 27 to give you cubic yards. So we were able to kind of quantify that. So if I go back to the God knows what I'm sharing right now. Are you guys looking at the plan?
Yes.
Okay. So you'll see that there is a little bit of regrading on the slope, but the net overall is a cut. So at each incremental elevation, we're not causing any additional fill or displacement within the floodplain.
So there's no place where you have to remove fill because you're adding fill. You're
correct. We're just kind of regrading it, and we'll end up with a net increase in storage, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
Yep. Mike, did I miss anything?
Oh, you got it. You got it all. Yep. You're right on.
Well, we did a site visit recently on that site, and we probably all have seen it before, and it's really steep there, and it's really not that rail trail is not protected very well with those railroad tracks pounded into the ground to try to hold everything together. But
and just as a point of clarification, so the grading is only happening from that, or just for a question for myself, the grading is only happening up to that wall, that kind of retaining wall that's there, and then up to the edge of the canal, and then on either side of it, that's just vegetation management, correct?
That is correct. So the proposed contours are these darker lines here, so they kind of tie into the existing, which is the dashed. The hatched area, again, just like you said, is just just being removed vegetation by hand, stumps left in place. That we don't want any machine work over that brick culvert.
Right.
It's still holding, but yeah. So we would expect that to be done by hand. Again, over here, we're tying into the retaining wall, like Cassie had mentioned. And just point of clarification, we do have like we'll call it a stilling basin at the bottom here to pick up any of that water. I think that may have been discussed at the site visit. We have a yard drain, like one of those nyloplast yard drains that will pick up, just the water that lands on the slope and gets collected here. And that will be tied into the existing drainage system. Really no general change to the drainage patterns, just kind of collecting it a little cleaner so that it doesn't run under the building where you can kind of, cause problems. There's a big overhead door down there and some other stuff that it's really been hasn't been managed at all for, the last couple of decades anyway. So.
And all the site work you can reach from below, you don't have to be up on the rail trail doing anything.
That's a good question. Mike, have you looked at that with Ryan, and do you have can you speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Jay, so I think, what we did is we have an easement agreement with the city for maintenance, and, we would do, the idea would be more than often, if there's any major work to be done, we would do it in the wintertime.
Okay.
And we'd give plenty of notice. And obviously, if we had to do it in the summertime, for whatever reason, we would get a police detail and notify the rail trail and et cetera. But the only stuff up top, I think, really is going to be the tree planting along the bike path. I think everything else, I believe, don't quote me on it, but I believe we can get it from below.
Okay.
It looks like the tree planting is limited to the grading area. What's the intent for revegetating the hashed areas to the sides?
It would just be the seed hashed area above bridge vegetation by hand, and I think that's just seeding. I don't see any plantings called out for. Obviously, probably doesn't make sense above the canal itself. We wouldn't want any root intrusion. I don't think we're doing anything major in terms of the trees. Let me see what we got. Serviceberry, dogwood, paper birch. Paper birch could, so we don't really want any trees over the top if we can help it. And then we're planting the rest of the slope. So really, this is the only area that we wouldn't have any, major woody landscape plants.
What about the area further to the west?
Over here. Mike, I don't see any plant, and I apologize because I know Mike and Ryan went through this in detail. Like, I don't see any plantings proposed over there. Is the intent to just have that be seeded?
Well, that's not first. It's out of the buffer zone, and then we will clean that area up. And Cassie, it was myself, Cassie, and Jeff Bagg walked that area. I mean, there is a lot of trees that are in really rough shape. It'll just be cleaned up to be able to be more maintainable.
So where the call out says that it's going to be cleared of vegetation, is it really going to be cleared of vegetation, or what's the? I'm just concerned about the slope destabilizing.
Yeah, we wouldn't do anything to destabilize the slope. So if we were going to cut any trees, we would leave the stump and the root in place. But that's if you look at that grade, I think that's relatively flat in comparison.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, this is probably more like 3-to-1 slope here is what I'm looking at, and then this is, I don't know, maybe more like 5-to-1, 4 or 5-to-1. It varies obviously, but so the intent, Mike, is to be able to at least have the permission to take out anything in there that you want to take out, being out of the buffer zone, and then just making sure that you stabilize and leave what you selectively would like to leave. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, correct. We want to be able to, so there's going to be, the plan is to put a new black chain link fence there. And again, the trees, it's not shown on the plan, but we'll carry, whatever trees we have up top, we'll carry something similar down that westerly side. And eventually we're going to actually go all the way to building 3 with a handful of trees. So there'll be like a tree belt along the bike path. Not directly on the bike path, but a good 5 to 8 feet away from the bike path, all the way down to the building we just finished last summer.
And will there be seeding done in amidst the tree plantings on the slope where the grading is going to occur?
Will there be seeding?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What's the proposed seed mix?
I think it's just going to be, is it?
Right now, they just have it as grass seed.
It should be like a conservation mix.
Yeah, New England Wetland Plants makes a pretty good conservation mix. They also make a erosion control stabilization mix. I forget the name. And I know that Valley Green has something similar. So something to that effect, Mike, wouldn't be a problem, right?
No.
And are, I can't tell, are the erosion controls that are proposed shown on here?
Yeah, they're on a different sheet. I'm sorry, Julie. Let me see if I can share that. I know there's a second sheet. I don't know, Cassie, I don't know if you have that second sheet handy. I don't seem to have it.
Let me see what I can find. Hold on a second.
Thank you very much. I think I saw an erosion control blanket and
I have a plan that has a detail.
yeah.
Hold on just a second.
On sheet D1, there's a detail that has an erosion control blanket.
Right. This is what maybe we want. Can everyone see that?
Yeah, and maybe then, yeah, there we go. Perfect. So at the top, obviously the silt fence detail, your erosion control blanket, and then you have a tree planting detail. Let's see if we have any notes. We should have some notes on the seating too. I don't know if we call it out. That's the yard drain at the bottom. Going great. Maybe on the right hand side there might be some notes about the seating. What do we get? That's all silt fence. That's good mix. If you wanted to condition the seed mix, I can actually look and see what I can find on New England Wetland Plants website or equal.
So what will be protecting that area at the bottom of the slope where the drain is going to be installed?
What will be protecting that area? You mean prior to stabilization?
Mm-hmm.
I think we could add we could trench a silt fencing at the toe of the slope upon grading, just in case there's any rivulets that get created or anything like that. That would probably make sense.
Okay. I think that would be appropriate since that's going to be directly tied into the drainage system.
Yeah, we could ring the area drain with hay bales, or I'm sorry, straw bales, whatever seems appropriate as well. I have a New England erosion control mix and restoration mix from that's moist sites. Let me see if I have one for. Yeah, there's, Mike, are you planning on doing this work pretty quickly, right?
This work probably won't happen until next year.
Oh, okay. All right. So we don't need to worry about winter rye or anything. Okay.
No.
That'll be. Yeah, so I have a New England erosion control restoration mix for dry sites. That would probably be most appropriate given the slope and the fact that there's really no wetland soil or anything like that along this. Is just a fill slope from the rail.
Any other questions from commissioners?
I'd like to just kind of go over, if we can, just kind of as a due diligence things, the resource areas and like the determination of this not as a riverfront area. Because that was a big question that DEP had, and RLA provided really good information about it. And I just want to kind of give a little more time to that. So the DEP comments first was saying, like, why was the canal determined to be a canal? And then if it is determined to be a canal, does its status as a canal extend beyond after the bike path, essentially, once it emerges from the culvert. And so I'm going to share it. Actually, it was the letter that you guys found from the original order of notice of intent for the first Ferry Street project. That's file number 151-299 and 298. So I just want to show that real quick and make sure that that makes sense to everybody. Hold on. It's huge. Okay, so this is them kind of this is RLA summarizing what they found, just going back, because whatever the commission found to be the case with with these areas, for those two existing orders is what stands as the status of them now, until that order is taken away, gets certificate of compliance, or expires. Neither of those things have happened yet, so it still stands. Let's see. And I don't know if maybe, Rob, you can give an explanation of this better than I can, but basically, Mr. Fallis from DEP's retired now. He doesn't work for DEP anymore, but at the time he did, and he made the determination that it was a canal because the river was diverted and changed its location as a result. It wasn't just channelized. The original location is changed. What used to be Broadbrook, and then that man-made structure continues on after the culvert, is basically how it's being explained here. Does that match up with your understanding?
Yeah, I think you did a great job, Cassie. Yeah, so David Fallis had looked at this closely with us, not only for the original notice of intent filing, but I believe Catherine Skiba from DEP worked with MEPA in their response, and DEP's response to the MEPA filing for the overall project, which I believe is an ENF. And that's where they, kind of clarified, and there's some language in the actual ENF response that clarifies it as well. So essentially, Broadbrook used to meander, and then, this man-made canal was created. I believe the determination says that they do believe it's a river, but because it's a man-made canal, does not have riverfront area. I think that, which is an interesting subtlety. For Julie would appreciate that. But so I think that's how it was. Well, I know that's how it was determined. So yeah, so no riverfront that would impact this proposed work or the other proposed work as well. And Cassie made a point as well that we do have a historic mill complex for a lot of the impervious areas that we could, also could take credit for. But the fact that there's no riverfront is also a determining factor in keeping this clean as well.
Yeah, a big part of the question was because historic mill complex exemption is for, previously constructed on areas, and this is a vegetated area. So it was like, okay, well, did the commission originally make a determination about that area as well? And this, I feel like, is showing that's the case. And if the commission agrees, the only other thing that I have is that from the original order of conditions, I found all the files and scanned them all. One of them is a preliminary review and comments by the commission saying that they agree. Just zoom out a little. But this is a message from the commission to RLA way back in 2018. And it just says channelized stream on the property is considered by the department to qualify as a canal, which it has no riverfront area. Does anyone have any questions about that? Does that make sense to everyone? Does everyone agree that that is how this is?
I know that's how we treated it last time.
Okay. Let's see.
Any other questions from commission members? Go for it.
Okay. Are there any invasives in that area?
I would have to defer to Cassie on that. I don't read. Well, there's got to be some, but I don't know how they work.
Yeah, I didn't do like a true analysis of if they're there, how many, what species. I think when we did our site visit, I know that we identified a few, but I couldn't say the extent or the whole number of them.
So then you're not removing the invasives. You're going to take the invasives in with everything else that you remove.
I think it's fair to say that the invasives, any invasives that exist there, we would try to eradicate as part of this. I think the goal is to have this to be more of a maintained slope, and have these plantings, appropriate plantings there. So, Mike, is it fair to say you're going to, if you got bittersweet and a bunch of other nasty stuff, you're going to get rid of that if you can, right?
Correct.
I think probably part of where Deb's going is that we'd like to see also that any invasive material is disposed of properly and not treated with the rest of the vegetative material that's being removed.
My other question is, so when we went for the site visit, that area has a very high canopy. And so if you remove all those trees, which they were falling over, they are very lengthy, very tall, very dangerous. If you remove all that and you're putting in the shrubs further toward the middle than where we were, the canopy is going to be different. Like that whole area is going to be completely different. Is there a way to somehow balance that? I don't know if there was any wildlife there. We didn't see anything, but I did see old logs that were on top of each other that looked like it could be potential dens. And I was just curious how you can go from it looking like it is to a completely different area with smaller, shorter shrubs. And are they shrubs or are they small trees? Because your proposal says 2 to 3 feet with the dogwood and the serviceberry. Are they trees? Are they shrubs? How high do they get? I'm just confused how you would go from such a high canopy with a lot of shade to you're going to open it up and you're going to change that whole landscape.
Yep. I think that's accurate. I think if they cut the trees, we're going to lose the canopy. I think, wildlife will still be able to use that area, but they certainly will have a different characteristic. And I would agree that whatever gets planted will take time to mature. But we're not planting for necessarily today. Obviously over time, these plants will continue to grow. Let me just see if I can get you an idea from the plant list here.
On sheet D1, there's a tree planting detail, but I don't see a height that's jumping out at me, but it looks a lot taller than the little shrubs that you're planting.
Yeah, so the tree planting detail is typical, so it's not specific.
Okay.
Just a standard detail, just so that
right.
Anyone who doesn't know how to plant a tree, which probably a few people. We have serviceberry, we have dogwood, we have paper birch, flowering dogwood. So those are, there are trees. That said, we're not doing, paper birch is, 1.5 to 2 inch inch and a half to 2 inch caliper. That's not a huge tree, probably 6 to 8 feet tall, just to give you some perspective. So, if you're looking at the existing canopy, I think you're accurate in that it will be different, but, paper birch grows pretty quickly. Some of the other stuff doesn't grow as quickly, but I think it's a different feel that they're going for and that they're looking to be able to maintain and more, I don't want to call it manicured because Mike, what's the plan? How often and how do you plan on maintaining it going forward?
Well, it's just, it'll just be part of our, you know, our overall landscape program for the entire site. So as it needs maintenance, we'll address it. But right now, obviously, it can't be maintained in the shape that it is now. So we want to make it look neat and clean, and you know, we're going to carry that, you know, right along the bike path.
Well, something to be kind of commented on is that, you know, not only does Mike want this to look decent, I'm sure that's a big factor, but also maintaining that slope with that mature vegetation on it, and the fact that these things can, you know, blow over in the wind and destabilize the slope and that type of thing. It's not great for that type of embankment. I would assume that if this was still maintained by the rail, this would be clear of most vegetation, would probably be almost maintained as a you know, lawn, or, you know, hit, you know, knocked down a couple of times a year. So I think in an effort to maintain the embankment properly, I think it probably makes a lot of sense to do what Mike wants to do. I think it'll prevent erosion and also hopefully provide some wildlife value going forward.
And so when you remove all these trees, are they going to be removed immediately off site, or are you stockpiling them somewhere?
There's probably going to be some pretty good sized stumps that need to be handled properly. So I think sounds like Mike intends to probably work from the bike trail down and from his site up, because most buckets that they're going to be dealing, or most arms of excavators are going to be, you know, only so long. So that said, I would expect that they'll have to do this as surgically as possible, because like you said, you don't want to destabilize the slope. And then as they go, they'll be repairing the slope, loaming and seeding. But with a grading bucket and a pretty good sized machine, I would expect it can be done pretty quickly, but the stumps will be stockpiled. I don't know if you guys are thinking of a dumpster, Mike, for the stumps and just get them out of there, or trucking them out. One way or the other, they're going to be out within a couple of days, I would assume.
Or leave some of the stumps in just to, you know, keep things tied together. You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, the stumps and root systems are going to stay, right? But maybe the trunks you were talking about will be
Correct.
You're gonna leave all of them, Mike?
Yeah, we'll leave all the stumps that maintain the, you know, we'll cover around them, and depending on the grade. But I mean, even if the grade covers the stumps, it'll still help with maintaining the slope.
Less impact. Sorry for the confusion.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from members of the commission? Any questions from the public? I see one name I don't recognize, so I don't know. So any
comments from the public? I know who that person is. Someone from another agent who's just watching.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So procedurally, what do we have to do for this issue an order of conditions?
Yeah, so this is a regular notice of intent. So if the commission, you know, if they have any other outstanding items or questions, it would be continued. If there's more information that you want, if there isn't anything else that you want, if you feel satisfied about, you know, erosion controls and everything else, then it would be an issuance of an order of conditions with special conditions. Just in terms of special conditions that I've noted so far, one would be just getting a final confirmation of what the seed mix is. I know that you mentioned one, Rob, of what you guys would probably use. I just want to get that, you know, submitted with the final before work started. And then the other thing that I added was
to protect that drain area.
Yep, protecting the drain area, having a condition to add those plans for protection to the plans. And then anything about, like, maybe I probably would put in a condition, I think it might already be part of the boilerplate, of proper removal of invasive species instead of, you know, everything together.
Mm-hmm. Do we want to consider also asking for an invasive management plan to just look at going forward a couple of seasons while things are establishing?
We have done that in the past.
If I could interrupt, so just to get back to that seed mix, so I would propose a New England erosion control / restoration mix for dry sites from New England wetland plants, if you wanted to just make that a condition.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Cassie, procedurally, if we want the change to the silt fence around the drain shown on the plans, I think, didn't we change things so that we have to have the final plans in hand before we issue a order, or am I misremembering?
That might have been something that you guys have done. I don't remember that either, but it's something that you can ask for if you want to see how that would be. It's up to the commission how they want to do it, is my understanding. Especially if you want more information about how that would be done and like kind of see it. It's up to you guys.
It's helpful through the chair. I could pick a contour elevation at the toe of the slope that we would mimic. Really just at the toe of the slope around that area. If you guys want us back, we're always welcome, or always happy to come back, but you know, you guys have a big agenda. If you would like to have it, you know, as a condition, we would certainly either pick a contour elevation, or we could, you know, just call it the toe of the slope. And then I would ring the area, I'm sorry, the yard drain with straw bale spots of it.
Well, so do we want to continue this to get those items on the drawing? It doesn't sound like this is going to happen next week anyways, right? It's not urgent.
No, just at the same time if possible, but no, it's not. I don't think it doesn't sound like it's happening right away.
So is that what we want to do? We want to continue, or we want to make a decision tonight?
Can't we just make the changes that we talked about and get it to the board instead of coming back?
Well, that's I'm asking the rest of the members.
I don't feel strongly one way or another. I thought that we had made a policy that we were going to require final plans in hand before we issued decisions, but I may be misremembering.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Especially if it's in the conditions that they have to do it, then
sure.
In this, you know, doesn't seem like it's that big a deal if we put in the conditions that they're going to put straw bales around that drain system to protect it. But I just want everyone to be happy, that's all.
If the commission did decide to issue an order tonight, what I would suggest the condition would say is, you know, that's got to be, it's a pre-construction requirement that that plan be submitted.
So is that what go ahead.
I just have one more question. If they're going to put in, is it silt fencing around the drain? Is that what
we could do a double barrier? I was thinking that we would do straw bale staking, but I guess you could do both, but I would just do straw bales. We're going to have the ring of silt fence around the toe of slope. So if anything runs off the slope while it's destabilized, it would be ideally picked up there. And then, you know, there would be another safeguard right around the actual yard drain itself.
Because in the plan, you have number 12 with the silt fence installation shall be removed when it has served its useful purpose. So I didn't know if you were going to put it around the drain, if that's something that you would feel you would take out on your own, because usually I believe it's Cassie that comes and makes sure everything is stabilized.
Yeah, your conditions typically, your general conditions typically require that the Conservation Commission sign off on any erosion control removals. So we would certainly not do that. We would not do anything conflicting with your orders.
Okay, thank you.
So are people comfortable going forward with the conditions as discussed, that they'll be documented at the 48-hour notice, pre-construction notice?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So can I get a motion to issue that order of conditions?
Motion to order, issue an order of conditions for the project with the conditions as discussed for the silt fencing, disposal of invasive materials, seed mix specification, and requirement for a invasive management plan to be submitted prior to commencement, I guess is when we usually do that.
Second. Second. Roll call, Miss August.
Aye.
Julie.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
And I agree, aye. So the motion passes.
Great. So I have 21 days to generate that order of conditions. I'll obviously try to get it done before then if I can. And once I get that sent off to you guys, it's the 10-day appeal period for DEP. You can start work before then if you'd like, but it's at your own risk. And then there'll be a number of like pre-construction requirements like we just discussed that will be in there.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Cassie, just a quick,
Oh, who left?
quick question, Cassie.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, we'll punt on the other one until the 8th. Is that correct?
Yeah. You guys have potentially a change request for administrative approval for the Stepler property. I have another item that's going to happen that I was going to request to be taken out of order right now. And then if you want to stay, we could talk about it, but I didn't know.
I'm happy with the 8th when, if you want the chair to be around too, and, it's not super pressing. So
I just wasn't able to share it with the commission before the meeting.
Yeah, I didn't want to not be on, and then you guys brought it up. Thank you. Okay. So I'll wait for the 8th. Thanks.
That sounds good.
Thank
you.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Yeah, like I said, if we could, I'd like to request that we can take item 7Q out of order, just for Diane here.
Sure. Let's, will someone make that motion?
Motion to take item 7Q out of order.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, Deborah.
Aye.
Julie.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
And I agree, aye.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Diane, you can kind of take it away, I guess, and make you share your screen or co-host.
Apparently my camera is not working, so I will be a black screen tonight. But thank you for taking mine out of order. I'm back regarding the South Street issue at Wilton Brook. I was here in April regarding the putting some curbing in and putting some permanent patch in the roadway. There's another hole that has started to form in the location where the water, where there is currently 2 outfalls that take the drainage from South Street from both directions and empty it into Wilton Brook. We're requesting to install a catch basin at that location at that low point to collect the stormwater, just the sheet flow from the roadway that's currently supposed to be going through those outfalls. We believe that that water is going around and over again over the slope and creating erosion. And those pipes are currently at like a 45-degree angle, I believe, on the slope. So they're starting between the material coming out around it and the slope that they're on. They're starting to slide down the embankment as well, which is creating even more erosion. I think it's down. We did some quick survey points, and it's down like about a foot from where it was in April. So we're requesting to be able to put a catch basin basically right adjacent to where those they are in the picture, where those 2 outfalls are, collect that stormwater, and then let it out through, instead of 2 12-inch pipes, an 18-inch pipe in the same location, but at a much lesser slope out into Wilton Brook where those are currently located.
And Diane, I don't know if you said this already, you were thinking that it was potentially fit underneath work category 5?
Yeah, I believe, so we're hoping that it could be covered under the bundled NOI item work category 5. Basically, we're not planning on doing any in-water work. There wouldn't be any need for, this would be done on a dry day, so there would be no need for bypass pumping or anything to that point. And it's basically replacing the existing system per se. I mean, we're putting the pipe in the same location it is right now. And actually with the catch basin, we're proposing a 3-foot sump to collect some of the sediment prior to making it into the brook. We would like to put a deeper one, but with the culvert there, we feel more comfortable just putting a 3-foot sump in there.
Diane, the pipes currently run all the way under the road, or remind me where they pick up?
So basically they collect right there at the low point of the road, which is right where the culvert is, and they just run down the slope. So you can kind of see them. Okay. They're not very deep or anything like that. And they're like at almost, I would say about a 45-degree angle. I didn't measure it, but just visually it looks like about a 45-degree angle.
Right.
Okay. So they do not go under the road. They're just.
No. So, and
got it.
This catch basin really wouldn't take, it would just be taking the surface flow from the road. Yep. It wouldn't be doing it. Like there'd be no pipes coming into it.
Okay.
I have some pictures from the site visit I can share that might give a little better. Let's see, stop that share.
And I also mentioned this in the memo, but when the guys went out there was about a 2.5 to 3 foot hole in the at the site. They filled it with stone to just keep it stable and stop it while we talk to you guys, but it's starting to undermine the road. So
this is the culvert that goes all the way under the road. This is the end point of those 2 inlets at the edge of the road.
Okay.
This is the same thing from above. These are the inlets just getting swamped. Same thing, outlets. This is them. Yeah, so they put that because they were starting to kind of slide away.
Is there evidence of any other sinkhole activity on top of the culvert at other points in the road, or is it all?
No, it really seems to be. Cassie, do you have any zoomed out pictures at all? I have some at the office, but I'm currently not there.
Yeah, that's as good as I got.
Okay.
It seems like it's very localized to that location.
Mm-hmm. And so the catch basin will sit over that culvert?
Correct. And that's about, we did take some shots out there, and it's about 10 feet down from the edge of road.
And there's no concern about running into issues when you dig to do that, to put that catch basin in, that would require then more work on the culvert? Or
we don't think so. I mean, that's why we're trying to keep at least 3 feet separation. That's why we're only suggesting to put in another 3-foot sump as opposed to the typical 5, because we wanted to keep enough cover in between.
Okay.
So it'd be like a 6-foot structure overall. So that's greater than 3, just a little over 3 feet, 3 to 4 feet, because we just took some quick grades. So we didn't do full survey out there. We just wanted to get an idea of where that culvert was in relation.
And basically, Diane, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is proposed to be like a permanent solution to this problem.
Correct.
We don't anticipate that there would be anything else, because before there was like, oh, should we do something smaller, quicker? But if we can do the hope is that this would be the final thing that would need to be done.
Correct.
Let me also, I can pull up the bundled order. And we can just review what's required for category 5, and you guys can decide if you think that's appropriate, or I don't know if you guys have other questions, obviously. Go ahead.
That should all be in that table. I think I just added that table. I just took item 5, and then I just added a column to say how we were
I see.
Applying it. So if that's easier.
Yeah, that's easier. Hold on. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, the notification, the table in the bundled order has these 3 columns, and she added this last one with the request. But the notification requirements, prior notification and on-site meeting with the Conservation Commission and or its agent before any work in an emergency, 24 hours of completion. In either situation, commission review for possible need for additional filing.
I think it fits in this category.
I'm fine with it. Anyone else have any concerns?
I would just say if for some reason something does go wrong and the culvert becomes involved, then that would change things and we'd want to.
Correct.
Right.
But yeah, as long as everything goes as planned, I think we're fine to do it this way.
Yeah, we get Cassie out there right away. So if anything emergency needed to happen in the interim, we'd do that. And then obviously that would involve an NOI.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, if the commission votes to, approve this and say if there isn't any additional filing required, then there's the existing order has all kinds of conditions that, would be complied with.
Anyone else have any concerns? So do we need to make a motion for this, or this is just in a bundled notice?
I think it's good to vote. I think what we've done in the past with all these other proposed projects is vote to recognize, or what do I want to say is the word here? Like recognize as fitting under category 5. I don't know if recognize is the right word, but
okay.
And that no more filing is required. No additional filing.
All right. Does someone want to make that motion?
Sure. I'll motion to accept this notification for work to be done under the bundled notice category 5.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Oh boy.
Sorry.
Is that a third?
Yeah, really. Roll call vote, Deborah?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Michael?
Rough.
Brooke?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Diane.
That was the only other item that I had out of order. So if you guys want to return to original agenda order, we can do that.
All right. So where were we? There's no request for certificate of compliance. There was nothing highlighted on enforcement actions for new information.
So I didn't, but after my I got some more information for 10 O'Neill Street.
Okay.
So Commissioner August was able to share with me more images. So my understanding at the last time I shared with you guys that it had been seen that some cars had been parked in that area. That was the area of concern before. And I thought that was like a one-time thing, that they had just happened to do it and then they moved them. But actually there's a lot of instances that Commissioner August has been able to find, and I have, photographic evidence of that happening like a lot of times.
A lot of one times.
Yeah, I know. So the question, right. So I can share that. I'm going to share those pictures with you guys. And then the question just becomes like, what does the commission want to change? Does this change anything? Like, if it does, what would you, I'll do whatever you guys want me to do. You can reach out to them again. I don't know if it might make sense to talk about this more, maybe at the next meeting when everyone's there,
Sure.
But it's up to you guys, but I still maybe it'd be worth it to show the pictures.
Okay, let's look at the pictures, but in the past, they've kind of ignored us, right? So
that was the problem, is that originally we established communication with them. They responded, they came to a meeting, and the plan was that they were going to produce a restoration plan. And once it got to that stage, I couldn't get communication from them again. I made calls that were not returned, or messages that were not returned. And then we sent a letter
Right.
out
Certified.
got returned. It was not like received at any
Right.
point. And that, I don't know if it was because it was turned away or if it was like the address wasn't right. I definitely was the right address that I was given, but they might have had a better address reach than that. So, okay, so the dates are for September 11th, September 18th, September 26th, and on the 22nd, which I'm not seeing here, but it was also cars parked there on the 22nd. So yeah, I don't have those pictures, but let me share real quick. Oh, that's not anyone parked there. This is from the 18th.
Okay.
And the 26th. And there was that, I believe there was another instance. Yeah, this is from the 8th. Sorry, a little out of date order there. But so the 8th, the 18th, the 26th. So it's different cars. It's, it's changing around. Before, I think there was like full-on storage happening there. It's not as far back as it was originally. Well, actually.
That one car was, yeah.
In these ones. So, and there were cars parked there in the 22nd. I drove by myself, and I have pictures of it. I haven't uploaded them yet.
That's fine. That's fine. So it's not the storage that it was. It's maybe just people that are working for that day, or they're trying to get a vehicle out of the way. But still, let's kick it down the road to the next meeting and see what we want to do.
Okay. Okay. Cool. I do not have any updates for the next enforcement item, 37 South Street. I have no updates.
And the next thing is open space. You've got the Echodale West Orchard highlighted.
Oh, I only highlighted that because I didn't know if you had any updates, Jay. Because otherwise, there's nothing.
Nope. I think we're going to have a rainy week this week, so I'm trying to get out there next week. It dries up a little bit. And my only thing to do is to have a walk around with Russell and just make sure that I'm not causing him any problems.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't have anything else, so.
All right, so that's open space. And then
compliance.
So go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, compliance updates. You have a something that you had in your email. This is
it's changed, yeah.
So this is out behind Pleasant Street Mills where the retention ponds are, which have trees growing in them.
Yeah, right. So Jeff Back had reached out to me about those basins that, they would like to do vegetation management inside of them. And there was a concern, like, can they do that? I mean, a lot of time has passed and they haven't gotten the management they were supposed to. And so part of it was a concern, like, has it changed because, so much time has passed, or, it's an open order. So can they do it? I went through and looked at in the final approved plans included a operations management plan for the drainage basin specifically. And I just found that recently. So what's updated, it's different from what was in the email, because I was like, oh, would this be part of the bundled like maintenance? They do other vegetation maintenance under the bundled order, but I don't know. That drainage report that was approved on page 45 says explicitly that they should be mowed and managed all the time. They shouldn't have that level of vegetation in there. So it'll be a stark change, but it's kind of establishing that management that should have been happening anyways.
Okay.
And I talked with Melissa about it before. She was like, if it says in there in the management plan that can happen. But I wanted to mention it anyways, because it's gonna be a big change, but I think that was the original intent.
Well, it's not going to work, if it's full of what it's going to be full of in 10 years. So,
right.
Yeah, there's a couple. I was out there randomly today with the dog, and then I came back and your email was sitting there. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, so there's a couple of good sized trees in there. I think we we've counted 6 different invasives that are in that area.
Mhm.
Julie's favorite was there.
I know.
They especially in that upper basin, you know, there's it's much wetter and it has like cattails and things growing. They don't plan to go beyond
the cattails.
Yeah, they're not going to get
Okay.
into the center of it. They're going to just get the bigger vegetation on the edges.
All right. So who's going to do? Go ahead.
That's the basin that's still not functioning the way it was supposed to be. Has
So-
there been any movement on that?
I thought it was the lower basin that was not functioning correctly.
Oh, I would assume it's I don't remember which one it is, but I would assume it's the one that's wet.
Yeah, so I was looking at so the upper basin, the one that's kind of more like oblong and is like closer to the building, that one, it has like a wetland inside of it. So that one I think is supposed to be wet, is my understanding. But looking at the old communications, and I went back and through the minutes and everything, because I was like, what is the status of this project anyways? That basin that's farther, it's closer to the pond, had an issue. It was like retaining too much water, and that hasn't been resolved yet as far as I know. Hopefully though, this management will be the first step to getting that figured out. Yeah, and it's kind of like establishing a management plan kind of with DPW and everything going forward.
Yeah, the one that has the cattails seems to be wet, you know, a week after a storm event. So it doesn't seem like it's functioning correctly.
Okay.
Who's planning on doing the work? The city?
DPW.
DPW is going to do it. Okay.
They previously didn't have a tool that they can now use to do that. That's my understanding, at least.
Okay.
Is that now they have more capacity to do it, and this time of year is perfect because they have more time.
Okay.
Right now.
So maybe they have that articulating mowing thing they can go off the side of the vehicle with. So
I think I just saw that out and about. I didn't realize it was new.
At least I think it's new though.
I think it's relatively new. So can we get a copy of that page 45?
Oh yeah, you want me? I can show it right now if you like.
Or email it to us so we know what they're allowed to do. So
yeah,
if someone complains, we know that they're in the zone.
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, I can definitely email it. Do you guys want to see it now as well, or?
We can take a quick look at it, but yeah, if you email it, then we'll have it, and then people won't.
Yeah. And you know, there's a recommendation they can put signs up too if they want. Like, this is part of regular maintenance, or whatever.
Okay.
Let's see. This page 45. Okay. So this item F right here. In accordance with DEP recommendations, the basins will be inspected twice per year. The inspection should be accomplished when the basins are dry and immediately after significant rain event to determine if the basins are operating as intended. Twice per year, the basin side slopes and embankments should be mowed and any trash or debris removed. Any sediment that hinders the basin's functionally should be removed. Inspection should include review of the embankments, emergency spillway, riprap, outlet, and downstream for any sign of erosion or damage. Repairs should be made immediately based on inspection report. The accompanying maintenance report should be utilized by the system inspection and by the maintenance foreman during cleaning.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions on that? And then I don't see any other updates until we get down to G, Easthampton Park Solar.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I did a site visit on the 13th with Mr. Herzog of Wood Inc., who's been, managing the wetland replication area. And I also tried to take a look at the stormwater basins and that tree fall area that we talked about the last meeting. The plantings in the replication area weren't as successful as hoped. There were some plugs that were put in and then like a regular kind of ground cover, and the ground cover didn't really come in. I can show you the pictures, but basically, I think some of the leftover erosion controls kind of seem to be the reason that at least Stephen was thinking was maybe why their reseeding hadn't taken off as much as he had hoped. So the two options are they can reseed it, you know, now if they haven't already, because he seems pretty keen to just reseed it anyways. But he can definitely reseed it now, and then, or they can do nothing and just see if anything else it has a better time in the spring. I said I wanted to just bring it to you guys, see if there's any other corrective actions you guys wanted there to be. But basically, it's their incentive to get it, you know, prove that it's been successful for 2 growing seasons as soon as possible. So, and I can share those pictures if you'd like.
Sure.
And so just while I'm pulling those up, also checked out the basins. They're really vegetated. It hadn't rained recently, so I don't know how quickly they're drained necessarily, but definitely the vegetation in and around them has grown a lot more. And let's see. The tree fall area, he didn't have much to say about it, just because he was like, I'm not really familiar with that or why that necessarily would have happened. I got more pictures of them. I don't know if people want to have anything else they want to say about it. Let me see if I can get, okay.
So Cassie,
Yes.
how long have they been working on the replication? How many seasons?
I think there's only been 1 season thus far, is my understanding. Let me share my screen. I'll show you the picture of it. So this is kind of, you can see these stakes are kind of the bounds of it. You can see all the kind of straw that was left there. So these are some of this is one of the plantings. Let me jump around. This is kind of looking back the other way. Again, the straw. Couldn't really tell if the plantings had survived, frankly. Some of them may have, and now are just gonna either got browsed or were a little more dormant, but I don't know how successful those were either. But the big problem seemed to be this leftover material, apparently. Some of the other pictures, so the rest of these, it's kind of jumbled up, unfortunately. Just kind of overview, the crossing, the entrance, That's that other crossing. Down, this is, believe it or not, this is one of the basins. Just kind of an overview of it. Extra, this is another one of the basins, so you can see the depression is still there. There's vegetation inside of it. Another one of the basins. Another basin. Crossing. Okay, this is the tree fall area. Another basin. Again, more trees. So it's kind of those 3 images of the tree fall area. It's kind of like here, this is the center, and then to the right, it's mostly localized in that. This is probably the most overview of it.
So do we want to recommend some kind of corrective action for them, or let them go till spring and see what it looks like, or try to get that hay material removed so it has a better chance at you know, reseeding itself? Or the straw?
I don't think they would have very good luck if they seed it again now. I think it's too late.
Yeah.
And it sort of seems like they might as well leave the material intact for the moment to help stabilize things through the winter. And then, you know, probably in the spring when they reseed, they'll need to scarify that a little bit and remove some of the excess.
Right. So should we just revisit this next spring?
I think that seems reasonable.
there's no, like, you guys don't need to make a vote or anything. I just wanted to, yeah, hear that essentially, like, if there's any specific recommendations, but that's a good point about leaving the material
Right,
through the winter.
That makes sense to me. Anyone else have any concerns about it? All right, the next one you have highlighted is K, Easthampton School Committee.
Yeah, so this is just another update. So they are paving, it's just like a major construction point, is that they are paving that parking lot. I believe it has been paved now at this point. And so this is the area, the parking lot associated with the new building. So they paved all that. There is still in that area of what's still not stabilized is immediately next to this parking lot. There is an area kind of just along the parking lot that is associated with where their like trailer is, and the difference in grade between the original building lot and this new area. And so there is a silt sack. There's one catch basin inside the parking lot, this new parking lot, and there's a silt sack that's in it. Their concern is that the silt sack often causes the parking lot to flood. And so they haven't removed the silt sack yet because there's gonna be all this rain this week, and they haven't stabilized that one slope yet. But once they have that one slope stabilized with you know, all kinds of erosion controls, they're planning to remove the silt sack to prevent damage to cars, like if it does get backed up. So it's just more of like a note so everyone knows that's the case. They're getting close to finishing this phase in general and starting phase 2 as well. They think they're going to start the demoing of that part of the project in January. So that's a whole other like world of unstabilized soils. So I just want to put it on everyone's radar. They've been staying in communication with me. Oh, and also a resident reached out again regarding turbid water at the site, and I, you know, reached out to them, and they took some corrective actions and kind of explained why they haven't done some others, or there were some suggestions of like, oh, can you know, increase this here? And they're like, that probably isn't a good idea because, you know, X, Y, Z. I can go over all of it with you guys if you'd like, but just kind of generally trying to keep you updated about stuff. That's
right. Well, do you feel things are mostly stable? I mean, we're going to get some big rain event tomorrow. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, they know to keep me posted. I think that they've certainly taken all the actions that the commission recommended the last issue, and they're keeping an eye on that. The big one is to catch the silt sack at that one catch basin at the old parking lot, and the accumulation there. I mean, the big stockpile that's over there has just gotten more and more seeded over time. So hopefully that's helping. And will increase things. And then my hope too is that now that the other parking lot is paved, that, you know, stabilizes quite a lot. So hopefully that will help. And
you've been getting reports from them after storm events, so that's good.
Consistently.
Anyone else have any concerns or questions? All right, the next one that's highlighted is the one we already went over, Q, with the DPW on South Street. So the one after that is T, 50 Florence Road.
Yep, so just two things. So thank you I got a lot of comments for the invasives species management plan. I haven't communicated them all to Brad Saunders yet and gotten a response yet from GEI about those changes. So, and with, you know, so many commissioners not here, it might make more sense to get that final review done at the next meeting. The other thing that I'm waiting to hear about is that there potentially are issues with that first crossing, which the plan was not to replace the crossing at all, but rather to put a concrete slab on top of it and then, you know, not touch the culvert that's existing. Something about there's a water line that goes over there that maybe they weren't aware of. I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I am anticipating to get either a final report on what they do, if they do anything differently, potentially a request for changes. I don't know if it'd be amended order or what, but I just want to put that on everyone's radar. And the last two items, if no one has any questions about those things. Oh yeah, go ahead, sure.
So originally, I remember everybody was talking about that first culvert and talked about redoing it, changing it. And they said, no, it's good, we'll leave it. And I believe there were people from the public that also had opinions about that. And, you know, now we're coming around and they're telling you there's a problem with it. So, I mean, I don't know if you go back and you look, if it, you know, will tell you in the minutes, but I distinctly remember that because a lot of people voiced that it should be changed.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember that. I think, Julie, you were a proponent of that.
Yeah, and I had forgotten about the public concerns, but I think you're right, Deb. So if there are proposed changes there, we need to look at that carefully.
Mm-hmm. I will definitely review that. And yeah, I mean, if it's found that they can't do the work that they had originally proposed, then they will have to come either for an amended if they can. But if it's going to increase impacts, if they find that they need to put in a new culvert, that would be, I would think, constitute an increase in impacts, and they would potentially need a new notice of intent again. That is to be determined at that time. I can't make that assessment in any case, but I'll let you guys know what I get, and hopefully soon, because he was saying they're working on it, figuring it out now. So I'll keep y'all posted, and I will do that research of what previously was discussed for sure. Thank you.
Thanks. Item U looks like they started work. I've driven by, so I see that they're starting work on that site.
Which site is that, Jay?
The animal hospital.
Yeah, I added this to our agendas because I realized they don't have these next two items do not have wetlands on them, but the commission issued stormwater permits for them, and those have reporting requirements. So I was like, maybe these should be on here.
Sure.
Just getting updates. So
yep.
These ones are really quick. 410 Main Street, the animal hospital, yeah, no wetlands. We had the pre-construction meeting. They established a monitor. They're monitoring all the pre-construction items requirements were met. So that's an ongoing thing. And then 96 East Street, this is the accessible trail that's going in off of East Street near Mount Tom. And again, stormwater permit was issued. They haven't done any ground disturbance on the slopes yet. They have started working on the parking lot area down at the base that's flat. They're not going to start the actual major ground disturbance until next year, I think, or
okay.
Next season in the spring, yeah. or whenever it is.
I saw wattles stacked up there, and they had some crushed stone that they were kind of fooling around with right at the street level. But.
Yep, and they've done a good amount of vegetation removal, especially up top, which is it is. But
where does anyone park for that project? Because there's no way to get to it.
There is the old driveway for the original house, but it's super steep, and there's like a huge pothole, so you got to be careful, and it's locked, so not anyone can just get up there.
I see.
But my little clown car made it up there, so somehow. And then the major equipment is getting access through the Eversource right away.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, that's it for compliance updates for me.
Okay.
For the last couple of things.
Sure. I don't know if we have the right people for our September 27th minutes. Right. I don't have those on the screen up in front of me right now.
I don't know either. If it makes sense, we can just table it.
Yeah, we can just. We should have.
We were all there.
Okay.
The four of us.
So has Deb done all the spelling corrections?
Yes, once again.
Okay. Does someone want to make a motion to approve the minutes from September 27th?
I will motion to approve the meetings from September 27th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call. Deborah.
Aye.
Julie.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Jay, aye. Motion to approve the minutes from September 27th.
The next item is a little different. So I don't know if you guys remember the Reservation Road land grant project. So that came before the commission because they requested, the planning department requested a letter of support for the grant application. And that was, the land grant gives the municipality money to help acquire a piece of land. This is a 5.5 acre chunk that previously when they were trying to subdivide it. It was important because it's immediately next to Mount Tom State Reservation. So anything that increases that area is pretty good. And the city did get the grant. So the next stage in that is that there's a project agreement that needs to be signed off by the commission as well. If you guys vote to sign it, what I'll next do tomorrow is send you guys it all through DocuSign. You'll have to actually sign it digitally. I can pull it up. You guys want to see? Nothing in the grant application that you guys reviewed previously. There's been no major changes. It's all still the same. There's going to be a conservation restriction placed on the property, and that conservation restriction, I think, is what you guys originally reviewed as well. Yeah, because that was another thing that you guys signed off on, is that draft essentially.
Okay.
And that was drafted with Kestrel Land Trust.
All right. Do we need to have commissioners that are not present tonight have to sign this also?
Good question. I can ask. My guess is that it just needs to be a quorum.
Okay.
But I can check. But basically, so this project agreement, let's see, okay, so they're going to establish under the Conservation Commission, a Conservation Commission. I think this is just saying that we have one. Passive recreation purposes for the 5.5 acre parcel. And that we're getting the funds for it. And I think that, okay, because the land will be kind of, the two participants with the conservation restriction is the city and like some kind of land trust. In this instance, it'll be Kestrel. And so technically it'll be underneath the Conservation Commission as a property. So that's what's kind of going on here. Conservation Commission to manage, maintain, and operate the project.
This is the standard agreement between the state and us for their land program. So it's basically just saying that it's going to be used for the intended purposes, which are public access for passive recreation.
Okay.
All right, and so it's going to be signed by the commission and the mayor and Kathleen Zia Hardy's.
Do we need a motion on it, or?
I think that the best thing to do, would be a motion to sign the agreement, and then I'll send you guys the DocuSign.
Okay. Does any commissioner need more time to review the document, since it's kind of a big boilerplate thing?
I like it. I reviewed it before, so.
You did, okay. Anyone else have any concerns about it? Can I get a motion to agree that we will approve the land grant project agreement and sign it?
Motion to approve and sign the land grant or the land program project agreement for the Reservation Road project.
Second. For a second, okay. Roll call. Deborah?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Jay? Aye. Motion is approved.
Awesome. Yeah, that'll come in. I'll email that out tomorrow.
Okay.
And hopefully it should be fairly easy. You should just have to click it and it'll sign.
Yeah.
And so the last thing is this tree removal policy draft. And I know it's probably something like this. I would think that it'd be best to have the entirety of the commission here, just to think about it. But do you guys have any questions about it just generally before, if you've gotten a chance to look at it?
I didn't really look at it yet.
Basically what it is that, a lot of communities have done such things, and it hasn't come up a lot for us at all, which is kind of surprising me because it came up in Greenfield like all the time. But sometimes people have what are determined to be hazard trees on their property, and it's within the buffer zone. So there is, there's the RDA process or the NOI process for such vegetation removal, but it's kind of like the policy is potentially used as like a quasi between, not an emergency certification, but rather it's been reviewed by the commission or by me, or there's a certain set of criteria that if this request meets these criteria, then I can go ahead and sign off on it and they can just do it. It's in an effort to kind of expedite the process for such a small action if there is a hazard determined. Because the emergency certification isn't really right for that. The emergency certification is really for mostly municipal projects and things that the city would do. So it's kind of an interesting, question of doing that. Basically, the way I use the model after the town of Lincoln, I know the person who created theirs. She's on MSMCP, and she created that one. And basically, it's exactly that they've created a bunch of criteria that if the project or the request meets those criteria, then I can sign off on it because it's black and white. If there's more or they don't want to meet those criteria, then they can do an RDA or come to the commission and go from there. And then you guys can make a decision of how you want to manage it. The big questions are, do you like the criteria? Do you like that as a model of doing it at all? And we can look at it right now if you guys want to, or we can wait.
Sure, we could just, don't we have a new tree warden also?
We do, but so the tree warden only deals with trees that are on city property.
Okay.
This is for all trees that are within the
Okay.
commission's jurisdiction, but on private property.
All right. Sure, let's take a quick look at it.
Okay, cool. Hold on just a second. Where did I put it? Oh, it's over here. Okay. So I basically created two parts. I created an application for the public to use that has a brief explanation, and then I created a policy that the commission would adopt. And so it's a little, I think it's more clearly worded on the application. I'm gonna share that first. And so the policy basically says all the same things, but it's in a little more fancier language, saying shall and such. And so basically this talks about what the policy is for, trees that are within jurisdictional areas, why trees are important. You can't just cut them down. If they're in these areas, it should be reviewed. Then we're saying what a hazard tree constitutes, it's a tree that actually is posing a threat, damage to a structure or maintained portion of property, a driveway, yard, leaching field, parked equipment, home, shed, etc. Tree removal application has been developed to provide a means of reviewing and recording tree removals in jurisdiction areas while also accommodating the urgency sometimes associated with hazard trees. Then I list what the jurisdictional areas are. And then it kind of says you can't, if they're in that area, you have to go through this policy essentially. The criteria that I had so far was that all the trees have to be identified as hazardous by an arborist. You can't do more than 5 under my review. As much of the trunk shall remain as is possible after removal of the hazardous portions. So, there's potentially snag habitat. So there's some of these larger trees, you could end up with a really long existing trunk, essentially, if it's possible. It might not be possible in all instances. Stumps within 50 feet of any wetland resource area cannot be removed. Tree cutting must be planned to take place when the ground is sufficiently stable, either frozen or during a particularly dry period. All tree removal equipment must remain on landscaped or paved areas outside of the natural areas. Any tree to be proposed to be fully removed from within the wetland resource area, so bordering vegetated wetlands, must be mitigated. So not anything from the buffer zone, but if it's within BBW, they have to mitigate it. And there's let's see, if they're less than 12 dBH, to plant 1 native tree or 2 native shrubs. Greater than 12 dBH, plant 1 native shrub or 1 native tree for each small tree cut. Oh no, sorry, I have it backwards. But I read the alligators wrong. Did I? Yeah, greater than, you have to replace it with a tree or a shrub. And it's essentially the same for less than 12. I'm gonna look at that again, make sure I have it copied correctly. And then the requirements for what those replacement trees are, close to the original where the tree cut was possible, has to be a native species, diameter 1 inch or greater. It has to survive 2 growing seasons, and how they're going to make sure that that happens. Then potentially, like as an option, you could get a waiver. You can try to get a request for a waiver for this mitigation, but it has to be subject to the discretion of the commission.
Okay.
Yeah, see, the mitigation would apply for riverfront area also, correct? It would be a wetland resource area.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So it's just the buffer zone is the only one that wouldn't need it.
That might need clarified.
Okay. No, I agree. It does. Then this kind of reviews. This is the review process. If you can meet the criteria, then I'll review it to see if it can confirm that it meets all those criteria, and then I would issue approval myself. If it doesn't meet the criteria or there's a question of that, it would come to the commission.
Okay.
And then all these application requirements, there's the form on the next page. They would show like a little informal map. It's not like an official like stamped plan, but you know, it's a map and I can help people make those maps using the tools that I have. I would do a site visit. And then they have 5 business days to approve it. They can contact me for assistance. This is the form itself. You know, all their contact info. This basically makes them contact me to see which resource areas might be in there. And I would tell them which ones to check off. Listing up to 5 trees, you know, basically makes them review all the different criteria. Again, when the tree work will take place.
Tree cutting means what?
So I specifically didn't use the word tree removal because it could just be cutting the hazardous portions off of a large trunk. It depends on each situation, you know. What's that?
Go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just gonna say if that answered your question, Mike, but
yeah, I'd like to review a little more. Part D, greater than 12 inches of DBH. Is that member friendly?
What's that? I'm sorry.
What does that mean?
So this is for mitigation requirements. If a tree is requested to be removed from within the wetland resource area, not just the buffer zone, then they have to mitigate that by replanting under this criteria. So if the tree they want to remove is over 12 inches in diameter breast height, then they have to, you know, meet these either 2 native shrubs or 1 native tree sapling.
Is this a form for the community?
This would be for the public to use, correct?
Okay, so DBH is community gonna know what that means?
Good question. You know that, yeah, go ahead.
It's not, it's defined in the policy, but I don't think you have it defined on the application form.
Okay, I can do that.
Cassie, one of my big questions is that I like that we're requiring an arborist to proclaim it hazardous. I don't see anywhere on the application form where there's requested information about who the arborist was or.
Okay, yeah, I can add that on there because that's part of, it's one of the let's see, do I have it on there? Oh yeah, okay, yep, I'll add that.
Does it also matter who's cutting the tree? Like the landowner says, I can go out and I can do it myself, or are we requesting the arborist or some professional?
That's a good question.
Because, you know, if, you know, it's going to be a cost and someone says they can go and cut it themselves, what do we do?
Right. That's a good question. I think, you know, in theory, it would be, they would have to come, it doesn't matter who's doing the work, they have to, you know, meet these criteria and have that plan and show that they're going to follow that plan. But yeah, I don't know.
Or how would a homeowner know if it's in a wetland resource area?
Theory, they would reach out to me, and like knowing that this policy exists would be helpful. Most people who have wetlands in their property know to like reach out about it. Again, it's hopefully, you know, like what happened recently was someone was like, there's wetlands in my yard somewhere and I want to remove a tree. I don't know where it is in relation to the wetlands. Like, so we both I went online, I looked to see if there's any historical documents that we had about it. And then I went on the Mass Oliver and used the like online tools to be like, yeah, this is probably within the buffer zone. Then I went by and looked at it and was like, yeah, this is definitely like on the edge. So, you know, it's one of those things, but yeah, if people don't know and then they remove a tree, I won't know that they did that.
Right.
Yeah, we do
That's how it is
reference
right now,
tree.
too.
We do reference tree removal policy. So tree removal policy versus tree cutting. I don't know if that's clear. It's not clear to me.
Are you talking about the wording?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, is this for removal of trees or cutting branches off?
Yeah, it depends on each situation. In all instances, the stumps will likely remain.
So you're just calling this hazardous. What if you called it hazardous tree policy? Or do you have to be like how specific so like the layperson would understand?
I see. Yeah, it's a good
And can you top off trees? Is that considered tree removal?
if that top was considered the generating the hazard.
Mhm. Another question I had, Cassie, was, and maybe I'm just not thinking about this right, but what exactly would constitute a hazard to a yard from a tree that would actually be a hazard?
It's hard to say. Driveway, yard. Yeah, so this language is directly taken from the original that I used as a model, essentially. Like cause damage to a structure or maintain portion of a property. So if they can make the argument that it would damage their yard, but it seems like a hard argument to make potentially. We can take that out of there if we'd like.
I don't know. I was trying to figure out what I was trying to imagine a legitimate scenario there, and I wasn't getting very far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some people, you know, I've heard it discussed like, oh, my kids play back there and I don't know when this tree is going to fall, and
Right.
I don't want it to fall like while they're back there or something. So it's not
That's a
necessarily
hazard to people. That's not
right.
Right.
yard that we're concerned about. Like if it's going to damage your grass a little bit, I don't consider that a viable hazard for removing a tree.
I agree. Yeah, so maybe the language should be changed to people versus in that yard.
So would this also be considered preventative? Like if it's falling and someone has a shed and it's or like you said, people, like if it's starting to go but it isn't quite ready to go but it's deemed a hazardous, would this also be considered preventative?
Yeah, I think that they would all be preventative because once it's fallen, it doesn't really matter anymore. Like that's it. You got to deal with it, I guess. But people would, yeah, that's where I think the arborist would come into play. Like they would have to prove that it is going to fall as dead, or this part is dead, or it's looming in some way.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have to make any decisions tonight either, but this is all really good stuff. So, and you don't have to adopt it all either, if y'all don't want to.
I think it makes sense conceptually.
Yeah, I think it would make things easier because these questions do come up, and it'd be nice to have a procedure for it.
Mm-hmm. And to not have to debate it here every time.
Right. If you could handle the 80% of them.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice to have some kind of like defined rules for me to work under.
Right.
We make these considerations that it makes it much more black and white. You know,
Yep.
yes, you can do it. No, you cannot. You know.
Look, can we just think about the verbiage, tree
Sure.
removal
Absolutely.
versus tree cutting? What exactly are we talking about?
Yeah, I think that it makes sense in my mind, and I didn't do this in this document, so I feel a little silly, but to reference it as cutting as opposed to removal. Just because some of these instances it will just be cutting, and some of the cutting will basically be almost entirely removal, but I'm gonna encourage just cutting or to save as much material as possible, in my opinion, for like snag habitat potentially.
Yeah, I just think it might be tree removal versus cutting branches, and it can get confusing. That's all.
I agree. It should be consistent, whatever we choose.
Would the intent be that if there's a tree that is rooted outside of wetland resource areas but has canopy overhanging wetland resource areas, does that count under this as being jurisdictional?
It's a good question. I don't know. I guess that's your decision. I can word it so that it is, or I can word it that it's not. I know that with like, I don't know if I want to say it this way, but like tree law, if the roots are where the tree is essentially, but
Yeah.
that would determine like, who owns the tree essentially. But it's true that like, yeah, if it's coming over the wetlands and providing a canopy, that has a function. So depends on what you guys want to do.
You're right. I think the precedent is that it's based on where the trunk resides.
Can we table it for next meeting and have time to review?
Sure.
I make a motion to table it for the next meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, roll call. Deborah.
Aye.
Julie.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Jay, aye. Motion passes. All other commissioners are absent with notice.
It's a good start, though. I like it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's great. And the versions that I shared with you guys are Word documents. So if you want to put anything in there yourself and send me any edits, feel free. I appreciate this. This is like a good start, I feel like. So
Okay.
Only because in my line of work, we had to make it a 6th grade reading level. So
let's see. It's true. I mean, the more accessible, the better. So the more clear it is,
Anything else we need to do tonight?
That's it for me.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Deborah.
Aye.
Julie.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Jay, aye. Motion passes. All the commissioners are absent with notice. All right. See you guys in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, everyone.
you.
I appreciate it.
Bye.
Yeah, have a nice night. Bye.